and looks like we have a quorum.
Yes.
One, two. Are we expecting anybody else who's not here? Or is it
Yes, we're good to go.
Okay.
We're good first couple. So yeah, he's just coming in now for one of the agenda items. So yes, we're good.
Okay, then I will call the February 9th, 2021 Monona Park and Rec Board meeting to order. And as Jake just noted before we got started, we are recording the meeting. And I believe that'll be posted on YouTube at some point.
Yes.
You've noted the roll. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the January 12th meeting?
I'll move approval.
Okay, Molly, is there a second?
I'll second.
Rachel, thank you. Any changes? Don't see anybody. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. So the first thing on the agenda under appearances is Andy Kitzlar from Friends of San Damiano. Is that the order that you wanted to go in, Jake? Yep.
Yep.
All right.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for having me. It's amazing to see all of this attendance. So it'll be fun to watch this meeting go on. But I appreciate the time and Jake asking me to give a little bit of a background on the Friends of San Damiano in particular. I'll keep it really short and simple and then leave it open for questions, seeing that you have a packed agenda. But just a little bit of a background. The Friends was created in the summer of 2020, shortly after that the city was thinking about potentially purchasing or what options that they had in purchasing the San Damiano property. And our mission really is to work with the city to build enthusiasm and support for the protection and preservation of the San Damiano property in its entirety. And currently the Friends are focused on building a communication strategy. So how do we educate people about what the property is, what we're doing as a Friends and a city, and what the future plans are for the property. Fundraising for the purchase and the master planning process is a large endeavor that we're trying to do. So we're trying to help the city bring down the cost to the taxpayers, as well as trying to prepare us for hiring a consultant for a master planning process that will really include a large swath of the community. And then finally, really helping to build the interest and constituency that will eventually be a part of that information gathering. So not only after when the city closes on the property and people are out there enjoying themselves, but really trying to extract information, how people would like to use it, what people would like to see in the property. And that's going to be probably closer to a 2-year process to really do that fact and information finding. So, and we're calling that the master planning process, similar to what we do for a lot of the other parks, but it's going to be a longer process because this is a unique gem that the city has really a once in a lifetime opportunity to really example and show and bring people in and make the gem of, Dane County. So outcomes as of now, we do have a website. So if you have not seen it, sandamianomonona.org. You can go there, you can check it out. It provides great history. Actually, Dan Costello, who is the head of Acumium, which is a software company or a website building company, they donated their time to build it. So he's a Monona resident. So that was an amazing thing. Photographer Gregory Bleck, he's a Monona resident and retired photographer, but drives a school bus. So maybe one of you children on this call has Greg Bleck as the bus driver. So he's donating his time and going to the property and taking pictures. So I encourage you to check it out. It's an amazing site, provides you a little bit of a background and information. I will highlight that it is light on what we are doing with the property, city friends-wise, because we don't know what we're doing with the property yet. One, the city hasn't even closed on it. Two, people haven't really been able to be on the property and experience it. But three, we haven't gone through, again, the master planning process to figure out what that is. We do have a board and we are continuing to recruit. Currently, we have 5 board members that are all Monona residents. Pat Howell is an example of one. And we also have 4 advisory board members that are helping us out in a variety of ways. Gifts and donations are coming in. We do have a link on the website that you're more than welcome to click on and check out. And then we also do have a mailbox that checks are coming in. So gifts are coming in, which is a good thing. And then finally, more in the weeds of the mechanics and logistics, we are in the process of working with the city to finalize an MOU or a memorandum of understanding, which really stipulates the roles and responsibilities of what the city's doing, what the Friends are doing, what our shared responsibilities, and it will kind of, it will lay that out for us. So, you know, we're really excited about what we're doing. Everybody that's behind it, on the board, in front of it, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, are really excited to see where this goes. And again, it's really just a once in a, you know, I hate to say it, once in a lifetime, because this is a once and forever opportunity. And I'm really glad that the city stepped up and chose to purchase it. And then we have a friends group that is so passionate about it that's willing to help. So obviously the Parks and Rec Board will be involved in this to a great extent. We plan on having, as far as the city and friends, plan on having a steering committee that's made up of a number of individuals as well. So I look forward to probably working with all of you at some point in this project. So I'll stop there. I think that was like a quick overview.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
One question from the Friends standpoint: is the goal to preserve the property primarily, or to preserve the property as a public park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it will be all under city ownership, and it will be preserved as a park. Obviously, there is a structure, the house, and that will have to be work coordinated between the city and the Friends to figure out what the condition of the house is and what either that renovation or a new facility would look like, if that's deemed as, you know, a necessity.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Andy? Yeah, Jeff, go ahead. You're on mute. You're on mute, Jeff.
There, sorry about that. Andy and Nancy, Pat, really all the others who have been involved with this, thank you. You know, incredible work that all of you are doing, a lot of time that you have put in, and, you know, certainly, Andy, with what you're saying, it's a once in a lifetime. And I'm glad that we're getting to that point where it certainly is going to be something that people will be able to spend time at. Website is excellent. I really like the historical perspective that is included in the website. I guess the one, you know, piece I would suggest is that because it's, and I might not be accurate with this, but because it's not owned by the city at this point, uh, I don't know if should be encouraging people to be going there. And so I guess the one piece that seems so inviting is you have some great directions how to get there. And, you know, when I see that, you know, it's like, you know, want to get on the bike or, you know, take a hike or drive over and check it out. And so I don't know if you need a disclaimer or something just to say that it's not available for public usage at this point.
Yeah, good point.
Anybody else?
And sorry, Nancy wasn't on my screen when I saw Pat Howell on my screen. So she's obviously been integral into all of this, and I'm sure could answer questions too. So
Right.
sorry, Nancy.
Nancy, is this the item that you wanted to talk about or something else?
Yes, it is something else.
Well, if you have anything to add, I guess, on this, you can.
No, I don't have anything to add. Andy did a fine job. I don't have anything to add. That's just fine.
Okay.
Really appreciate everybody's support.
Doug,
yeah.
Doug, I'll just jump in quick.
Yep.
I just wanted to reiterate Jeff's support. Alder Moore, former Alder Kitzlaw, our committee member, Pat Howell, have put a lion's share of work over the past 6 months behind the scenes in working the foundation to establish a Friends of group. It's incredibly difficult just to get a Friends of group off the ground and a lot of the paperwork. And this is going to be, for the rest of the committee members, a really integral fundraising arm of what we can do at San Damiano. As we talked recently over a longer term, capital budget and lack of available funds and some of the other priorities that we have in the city, we won't be able to do it alone with our own tax dollars for any improvements at San Damiano, and also the reduce the acquisition costs. So anticipated that this memo of understanding will be approved sometime in the next couple council meetings. Once that is approved, it'll come back to Parks Board, and we'll kind of go over some of the things from the city end that we'll be working on, including the grant, Knowles Nelson Stewardship grant application, the archaeological study, and tree inventory health status, and kind of the staging, and from a city perspective, what we anticipate next summer to look like. So maybe next month, but for sure April. And sorry, Alder Moy, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but
No,
thank you for all your work.
Not at all.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. I actually wanted to talk about something else tonight, which is that you all probably know that Earth Day and Arbor Day are coming up in April. And I just wanted to alert everybody to the fact that the Sustainability Committee has been working, as we always do around that time, to roll out a number of events. And one of the events that we're working on right now, which Brad and Jake have been in touch with each other about, is that we really want to highlight our we're the tree city, right? And we're losing hundreds of trees, as you all know. And so we're planning an event at Waterman that our hope is to have a variety of our native tree species that we already have on our website, that people are encouraged to choose from when they buy a tree for their yard, native species that we know will be good. And we're hoping to have a variety of those species for viewing, and a number of arborists and master gardeners there to answer questions. And then the whole idea is that people could either order those species for themselves in their yards, or they could order one to put in a park, put in one of our parks. And Jake's been working with Brad in terms of what parks he needs some new trees in. So the idea is that we would take orders right then and there, and we're hoping to have either live music. For those of you that know Waterman and hung out there last summer, you know that Linda in the Zeros lives right across the street, and is known to go out into her driveway and jam. And so we're talking to Linda about the possibility of doing that again, because she did it informally last summer, or if not that, having, or maybe both, having WVMO broadcast live while we do it, and then hopefully have the beer wagon and a food truck there as well. So make it all afternoon where people can learn about how to plant, learn about particular species, and place orders. And then the whole idea behind the orders as well is that if somebody wants to place an order for a tree in a park, then they can also make it in honor of somebody, or in honor of somebody's birthday, or in memorandum of somebody. And we're all working out all those details. And so that'll be on the afternoon of Saturday, the 24th of April. And that's just one activity of 3 or 4 that we're having during Earth Week. So I just wanted to alert everybody that that's happening.
Nancy, great, just a comment, great idea, wonderful group of things you're putting together. If you need any help with that, I'd be glad to help, or I would imagine some other people might.
We'll take you up on it.
Go for physical labor, I'd be glad to help.
Yeah, that'd be great, Tom, I appreciate it. Sorry, I just saw a question for me in the chat.
Right,
Will orders be made without attending the live event? Sure, we can take orders The idea is that both Public Works or Jake will be checking with our nursery that we use for trees and we're just trying to get a single sample or two of the native trees that we plant so that people can physically see before they order. But then, yes, we'll definitely be able to order, and we're really just, we established, I know Park and Rec has had one for a while, but the city also established a tree donation policy last year, and we're really trying again to encourage people to repopulate because we've lost so many and are continuing to lose so many, especially the ash. So any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I really appreciate it. Anybody volunteering, and Tom, I'll definitely be in touch.
Anybody else? Tony?
Do we have an inventory of the tree species that we currently have within the city so that we can identify any needs in tree species diversity?
Tony, yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, we have a tree inventory that was updated a couple summers ago for all of our right-of-way trees. The parks layer is a little fuzzy, but I can kind of fill in the blanks of what we have. We got it. We're still working on kind of the updates, but we have the majority of them for parks.
Okay.
And Public Works definitely has, Tony definitely has a more detailed, it's just, it's the Jake Brad brain, difference between the two, which is to say that Brad tends to, and his crew tend to be super focused on that. So he might have a better inventory. Whereas, Jake's got many other things that he's focused on. So.
Thank you, Nancy.
Sure.
All right. And Missy just posted in the chat that Park and Rec will be housing the platform to provide online orders. So, thanks a lot, Nancy.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Well, let's see. Jake, are we going to do the mountain bike presentation discussion next, or did you want?
Yeah. Yep. No, we can get them, and then Cody is here for the Eagle Scout project. But Missy told me that they got a quick presentation tonight, so we're gonna buzz through it.
Okay. So then unfinished business 4A is the mountain bike park discussion. Maywood Park. So Jake or Missy, did you want to?
I'm gonna turn it over to Missy. Go ahead,
Okay.
Missy.
Yeah, Jake, would you mind turning on the shared presentation aspects so the boys can take control when they're ready? Miles, Jack, and Bennett have been given direction from Jake and myself to take Maywood Park and go more detailed into a plan that they think would really benefit the community. And they're going to take us on their Maywood Park tour for our mountain biking trail. So boys, Jack, Miles, Bennett, when you're ready, go ahead and take over.
This is the in-depth Maywood Park. I'm Jack Oliver, and I am just today 12. I don't have a mountain bike trail at my house, but I have built them with Miles and Bennett.
Hello, I am Miles Peterson. I am 11, and I have a mountain bike trail in my backyard, and I've worked on one with Bennett.
Hi, my name is Bennett. My name is Bennett Chapa. I am in 5th grade. I am 10 years old, and I've built mountain bike trails with Miles and Jack a lot, and I've rode them, and yeah.
This is a video walkthrough of a possible trail that we could use for Maywood Park.
We're going to show you the trick. It would start in the lot and be two-way. Right here, we would have a wooden roller that would be able to draw a lot of attention to the trail and be in plain sight. This would also have a ride around. We are going this wide because we want to stay away from the cement to avoid contact with any parents or kids. Now we are going onto the one-way part of the trail and into the woods. We cut across here, but we'd have to clear out this stuff. Here would be our first trail split. To the right, it would be easier, and to the left, it would be a bit harder. That way is easier. That way is a bit more difficult. We would cut that log out and use it somewhere else or put it to the side. We would cut that off. And add a berm around this corner. Here. And we would have, it would first go straight down. And then second, if the project gets a lot of attention, we can maybe build something around in the corner where we walk in the video. Down there. Where the camera is going now would be where we would start. We would have a roller over that log and two berms in the shape of an S around these two corners. Now we are exiting the woods for a brief period of time. Now we're coming back into the woods for another short period of time. Around that corner, maybe we could add a berm. And another corner right there with maybe another berm. Now we are coming back to the start. Here on this straightaway, we could have a wood tabletop and a skinny. And yes, this is going along the drainage ditch. Here we are going to cross back and join up with the two-way trail. This area right here is where we would join the two-way trail. Again, going wide to avoid contact with others on the cement, and a roller right there. Things present.
So this is Maywood Park, and this is the legend. So the two lines mean the mountain bike trail. The orange outlined with the stripes looking with two humps, that's a roller. And the shape on that looks like a trapezoid is a tabletop. And the one that is a skinny, and the skinny little strip across the orange is the skinny, and the red dot is the start.
These are two possibilities for a wooden roller and a skinny that could be are models of something that we could add for the trail. Here are these are some links to a couple different references about different things for mountain bike trails. So yeah.
These are some of the supplies we might need. Some shovels, some rakes, some dirt, a wheelbarrow, some Parks Department equipment, lumber in the sizes of 2x10, 2x4, and 4x4. For the lumber, all wood must be green treated or otherwise water resistant, and we may also need plywood. We'll need nails and screws and logs for support. The logs for support we'll need because some of the features may need structures for support.
Great job. I'm going to chime in here. For those of you that have not spent a lot of time in Maywood Park, I will also say that I found a new area that I wasn't well aware of, and how vast and wide that wooded area really is. And I feel like it's a very underutilized aspect of the park that I think we can turn into a really fun experience for the boys. It was quite eye-opening, really walking in through the wooded area and seeing how large it actually was.
Anybody else have questions? Tom?
Yeah, I have a couple. One is, where's the property line right now for the school? I know there's some question about whether New Western Mundo is going to stay there or Monona is going to use it again, but just what is the actual dividing line there? Is it in the wood? Do you know, Jake?
Yeah, it's my interpretation that all the woods is city property.
That's city property. Okay. So the school property ends where the trees begin.
Correct.
Okay. Hey, in general dimensions, guys, you did a really nice job of visual of what it looks like, but I was trying to picture the length of it, and not exactly, but from the start, it looks like the start is where the kind of what I call the downhill sledding hill is. Am I right? You know where there's that opening in the woods and kids sled down there? Are you starting before or after that?
The start is like, it's by that area. It's starting to curve more towards the basketball courts, but then cutting into the woods over there.
Okay, so you're starting at about where that is, where the opening is? Kind of. Okay, so that
More or less.
That may be kind of flexible. Okay, thanks.
I was going to say, when we walked the trail, it didn't really impede upon any of what the sledding hill would, partake. It is before, and like Miles said, veered off to the right, kind of more towards the basketball court. So it didn't interfere with any sledding activities that may be happening.
So the reason I'm asking that is that's something we have to take into consideration in terms of a larger park, that there's multiple uses for it. And it would be wise, I think, to start a little past that. So there could be multiple groups using that space at the same time. I like the idea that you're starting with your idea of starting with a limited number of things, because you could always change that as time goes on. But I think it's smart to start a little bit smaller, if that was your intention.
Anybody, Jeff?
You're muted.
I'm just forgetting that mute button tonight. So Jake, on the north end of the park, is that a access point so that people wouldn't have to access the trail from the south end of Maywood?
Yes, we've not officially designated, but the city does own a 10-foot easement on the north end from Nichols Road. If you go back there, you'll kind of see the end of a fence on the north end of the park that separates Maywood School from the property to the north, and where that ends is kind of like the corner where our 10-foot easement would start. And then on the Maywood Road properties in the backyards, you can kind of see where the fence line is. So potentially, probably would need to reach out to some of the property owners just to verify that we would be utilizing our easement there that goes through there.
Just one comment. So the trail is only going for our first phase of the project. The trail is only going about halfway through the woods, not to the very top by the Nichols Road. So yeah.
I guess, what I'm thinking is that as a shortcut, kids might come in from Nichols to get to the trail. And so I think it's something that we should be considering.
Other questions?
Just wondering, I know we've talked about water mitigation plans at Maywood, and Jake, maybe you could comment on this if this would at all. I'm a huge proponent of this project and would love to see it go forward, but just wondering if any future water mitigation plans in that park would interfere with this.
Thanks, Rachel. That was actually one of the reasons why we recommended this site at Maywood. It gives us the ability as a kind of a pilot program, if it goes well, and we do have a future project at Maywood, it just provides the desire incentive to find another place for it. I don't believe that project is imminent or in the next 3 years. So we're probably looking at a minimum of 6 to 7 years. So that's that'd be quite a lifespan on kind of a volunteer type of project in a public park anyway. And I think it gives us the flexibility to kind of try it in an underutilized area. And And I don't see any issue with, you know, long-term stormwater management at Maywood. It's not happening in the next 3 years. I can tell you that confidently.
Jake and Doug, I don't know if we've had the chance to talk about it or review it thoroughly, but I know that Joan Andrews, our city clerk, also forwarded us some grant opportunities, some potential funding opportunities for a project of this nature. So the nice thing about that is, yeah. So the nice thing about that, you know, I don't know specifically if it would apply, but if we can get some extra dollars through grant funding to assist with this project, that would also be a nice way to, you know, mitigate some of the costs that may come with, you know, creating a project such as this in Maywood.
So that kind of leads into one of my questions was, who would actually do the labor and who would actually provide the supplies? Would it be a joint effort between the boys, the group here, and the city? Is that the plan?
Currently, Doug, we were looking at a joint volunteer city work. I believe, Jake, correct me if I'm wrong, at least we can maybe look at a day or two of, you know, parks crew help on a project of this nature, do some of the clearing, brush removal, and then volunteer efforts as well. The boys did find grant funding as well. Applications are due at the end of June. So it would be more of a 2020 phase 2 aspect in terms of funding for the grant if awarded as well.
Okay. And who would do the maintenance if there is any needed?
I think we could do like volunteer maintenance and schedule some days for just anybody to come out and help work on it. But after a few years, maintenance needs will go down because the trail will be more set in. So yeah.
Okay, thanks. And then I feel like I have to put on my city council hat, well, keep it on, but and ask this, do we know anything about liability concerns? And are we gonna run this by CIVMEC, the city's insurance carrier?
Correct. We'll get a recommendation from CIVMEC on signage and verbiage, but I think it'll fall under recreational immunity and then probably some signage about mountain biking being inherently dangerous, you know, activity, participate at your own risk. But we actually have that next Friday, Missy, where we have the roundtable. We've either a work plan or something within the next 2 weeks with CIVMEC, so we'll be able to get that documentation.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess I just reflect on that a little bit more. The fact that I'm asking that question, this is more to the guys. The fact that I'm asking that question is like, that means that we're all taking this very seriously and expecting it to happen, because otherwise I wouldn't be concerned about liability if somebody were to get hurt there. So anybody else? And what are you looking for from the board tonight, if anything, Jake?
So if the consensus of the committee is to move forward with this location and the proposed route, what the next step would be is that we would notice the neighbors that live immediately on the park for a special hearing and feedback over that. And then it would come back to the Parks Board for final approval for an addition to the park or change of use and purpose of the park.
Jake, I had a comment about that. You know, one of the reasons I was asking before about where you were starting, other than the sledding hill, I think that's pretty well used. I mean, when we have snow, I see people up there with, especially with younger kids, you've got to kind of watch you don't ram a tree, you know, on the bottom. But I think if you start beyond that point, you're eliminating 4 or 5 houses that would be almost right on top of the bike path. So it's kind of wise to start to the right of there. you're going to do that. And I'm glad, also a second comment is I'm glad Doug brought up the word liability. It was running through my mind. And it reminds me a bit of the skateboard park. Is that what it's called? Skateboard park?
Skate park.
Yeah, skate park. Okay. That's kind of a fun, but slightly higher risk. And that's used pretty heavily by a number of kids. But that's something we have to consider. We can't just say, oh, you know, it's a city property. So we can't just say, oh, we didn't build it, you know, a volunteer group built it and they're maintaining it. It's not our fault if somebody gets hurt. We have an inherent responsibility when we, even in just supporting this, that's another thing we need to think about. That's not saying I'm generally leaning towards this, thinking it would be a good thing, depending on the perspective. And my other concern would be making sure that other uses of the park, the playground, the sled hill, and we've also talked about at one point about putting a walking, running path in there. But I think all that stuff could happen in conjunction.
Correct me, sorry, Molly, real quick. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys, but typically you don't ride mountain bikes in the snow conditions like this too often, correct? So I don't really think that mixed use of sled mountain bike is going to be a huge concern.
I'm thinking more missing built in that spot, or there's signage there. All of those things could potentially interrupt with that. It's just something to think about. You know.
Yeah.
I was going to say what Missy brought up, which is that I don't believe that mountain biking is as heavily utilized or as heavily done as a sport in the winter. And I was going to ask these young gentlemen for their input, but it sounds like we're correct on that point. But it also, you know, I don't have the map up in front of me, but it didn't look as though there were any structures in that area close to the sled hill. So I think, you know, as you mentioned, Tom, these things can all be sort of symbiotically existing together. And utilized at different parts of the year, different seasons.
And they were very careful to stick around the current walking path and concrete path that we already have to avoid that mixed use of bike versus pedestrian war that we sometimes have.
And Missy, what you probably missed at an earlier meeting when we were talking about potential use, one of the ideas with Maywood was extending that, especially that far end of the park as you go down through Winnequa, is just kind of empty and not in use. The mountain bike in the wooded area would be a really good use of an area that, when I worked at Western Mundo for a semester filling in there. And a big job at recess time was keeping kids out of those woods. So doing something productive like this would be a great idea. But I was also excited about the idea of having a walkway and maybe a running path, which could use the majority of the park and not interfere with other things, including this. And Jake and I have talked a lot about ADA, you know, and I think that would be a really good way of making that a nice park, given that we don't have a lot of sidewalks that could be used for, and it's flat, that could be used for ADA use, in addition to general use. That was probably 2 years ago, don't you think, Jake, that we talked about that?
Yeah, Jake and I talked about that the other day too, of possibly connecting the north end up to Nichols. So sorry, I'm having a Zoom moment. Jake, did you say you do want a motion?
Yeah, if there's consensus, we would move forward with kind of the formal neighborhood input and set up just a standalone meeting, Zoom meeting to have, we'd send a letter to basically everyone that lives on the park, notify them of our intent, and then have just a listening session, take that comment into consideration, and then, you know, final approval at the March meeting.
Okay. So basically a motion to authorize staff to move the project forward.
Correct. Yep.
I'm happy to make a motion to proceed forward with the mountain bike path proposal. And thank you, boys.
All right.
I would be glad to second that.
That was Tom. Jeff, did you want to say?
I was either going to make a motion or second it, or I'll third it at this point. I think
Okay.
it's a great idea.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye, very
Aye.
well done, everybody. Thank you so much for your time and effort on this.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. All right, congratulations, guys. Thanks.
And
Thank
I'd like
you.
to volunteer the Wolf Cub Scout Den to help with creating the trail and maintenance in the future.
Cool.
When we get a little more direction on dates, times, we'll definitely get a sign up genius going. We'll have all volunteer efforts on hand and definitely make a whole campaign of, getting this out in our community. So thank you guys
Great.
for really putting in a great effort and our eyes to a new sport.
And Jake, hats off to you for weaving the word trapezoid into your presentation. Really impressive. Wasn't that you, Jake, that said that, or Jack?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, Bennett. It was Bennett.
Bennett.
I'm sorry.
All right,
Correcting me on that.
thank you. And you're welcome to stay around or go about your whatever you have to do. So we are moving on to 5A. New business is the Eagle Scout project presentation, accessible kayak launch at Schluter.
All right. Well, good news just keeps on rolling in Monona. I met Cody Kramer about a month ago. He has a mutual friend in Dan Kunch, and Dan alerted me that Cody was a Eagle Scout or interested in getting his Eagle Scout badge. And funny story, that's how I met Dan Kunch in Monona Parks probably a decade ago. He wanted to do an Eagle Scout project at Maywood Park and actually cleaned up a lot of that wooded area that a decade later needs to be done again. But I was so impressed by Dan's hard work ethic that we hired him as a seasonal, I think that next summer. And was that how it went, Missy? I believe, right? I think it was hired him. And well, anyway, so now he's working full time for the city. Fast forward a decade and Cody comes to us with the idea of wanting to contribute to the community and had an Eagle Scout proposal that he's here tonight to talk to. I believe Cody and his dad, Kevin, are on the Zoom call. So Cody, I'm going to turn it over to you and then I will pop in if you need me.
Sure. Thank you. Can I share my screen? I think I can. Yep, here we go. Okay, so I am here to ask permission. First, I should say my name. My name is Cody Kramer. I am a Boy Scout from Troop 132, and I am currently a Life Scout working on my Eagle project, which I would like to regrade the path that is right here that goes from the concrete sidewalk to the shoreline. So it is ADA compliant. So like wheelchairs and everything can go up and down, and just more accessible to all by upgrading the path using Tearcell and limestone fines to help prevent eroding of the surface from the waves coming up and down and washing the path away. So to just upkeep on that and getting permission to be able to do that. And then on a little bit of a side project that's a little different from my Eagle project, I would also like to ask permission to have a ADA compliant canoe and kayak launch installed at Schluter Beach right off of that gravel path. And I would be fundraising for the purchase of this launch, and I would and I already have a preliminary quote that is roughly around $21,000. I'm still looking to different configurations of what the dock would be, but this is one of the docks. This is the one-way dock, which you would go up to it, and anyone, with even people with like wheelchairs, could roll up, and if they have a canoe or kayak, they could put it on there, sit on the bench, be able to use it. Unlike maybe if there was just a path there, a wheelchair might not be able to get into a kayak or canoe as easy, and probably would struggle a lot. Whereas with this, it would be a lot easier and more people would be able to use this. And then right here is just a really quick video on how people would use this dock and what it looks like as well.
EasyDock's newest addition to the Easy Launch takes accessibility to another level by providing people of all abilities easy entry and exit for kayaks and canoes. The new Easy Launch accessible transfer system for kayaks and canoes provides unparalleled universal accessibility to the water. It's also simple and safe to use. It's so simple and safe to use that everyone will find boarding, launching, and recovery a breeze. The original Easy Launch for kayaks and canoes was the first of its kind, providing easy launching and recovery of kayaks and canoes. The guide rollers and pull rails make it easy to glide on and off the Easy Launch. Easy Launch is a floating system that adjusts to changing water levels. It provides ample foot space on both sides and in the front to allow for optimum access and stability. The new Easy Launch accessible transfer system has all the great features of the original Easy Launch, plus it incorporates a transfer bench and supporting rail system. The transfer bench has 2 height levels for transfer from different style wheelchairs and 2 transfer slide boards to accommodate different watercraft heights. The transfer slide board lands securely on the support railing system that stabilizes it and provides grab bar transfer assistance for easy slide movement and transfer in and out of a kayak or canoe. The Easy Launch accessible transfer system provides universal accessibility that exceeds the requirements of the ADA and offers innovative features, including transfer bench with 2 heights for easy transfer from a variety of wheelchair styles, 2 transfer slide boards, each at different heights for easy transfer into watercraft of different styles and heights, railing system for transfer slide board stabilization, user balance, and transfer support. The combination of pull rails and surface rollers provide easy access in and out of the water. Rollers for smooth transition. Floating platform adjusts to changing water levels. Exceeds the minimum requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. Simply put, Easy Launch provides a whole new level of inclusivity for all paddlers of all abilities. It provides unparalleled ease and safe access for all, along with their gear and vessels when launching and docking. For more information, please contact us. We look forward to helping you provide universal accessibility to people of all abilities.
And that is it. Are there any questions?
Any questions, Molly?
So first of all, I just want to commend you on this project. I think it's a really wonderful idea. I work with individuals with disabilities for my job. And so I think projects of this nature are extremely useful and very thoughtful. We just had that discussion about mountain bike trail maintenance and things of that nature. So I'm just curious if this will impact differently abled people's ability to get into the water from that access point, 1. And number 2, if there are any, annual maintenance costs or, concerns or requirements that you've kind of done or come across in your research that we should know about or plan for.
All right. I don't really know how to answer that. I'm a little stuck.
Molly, I just said that I think that's a great question. Cody, first of all, I'm stunned. I'm teary-eyed from this. It looks wonderful. And I can't think of another facility on Mendota or Monona that has this sort of access. But I did wonder when I looked at how the apparatus is set up, I'm assuming that would be removed, for example, during the winter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that would be something we'd have to think about and how that's done. And did they, when you were looking at the material on this, did they talk at all about installation and removal? You're not responsible for that. I'm just curious if they did.
Yeah, no, I'm not responsible for the installation removal, but I don't think they talked about it specifically.
Okay.
But I know that Jake and them probably talked about it a little bit and how they would be doing it.
I can speak to both those points, Molly and Tom. The Cody's Eagle Scout project would be officially to be the regrading of the sloped entrance that's currently there. And then the accessible kayak launch that you see in the photo and the video would be right next to it. So if you wanted to just simply walk in and load on your kayak, you could do that. And then from the end of the path where the current kayak rack is now, is where we would put the launch out into the water. This is the Easy Dock system. So it's the same type of material that we have for the decking at Wildhaven. So it's fairly maintenance friendly. Generally, it's put in at the beginning of the year. It's an all plastic composite type of system. The components are stainless steel. So there would be an element of ongoing operational maintenance, but not significant that it would alter our existing operating budget, in my opinion, at this time. And Tom, you are right. There is no accessible kayak launch on either of the two major lakes at this point. This particular system has been installed in a few areas around the state. Some received grant funding, and they've, at least the initial reports that I've gotten from these locations, it's been a very popular amenity.
And Cody, I would say, I co-lead a community garden with my husband, who's an Eagle Scout, and we have supervised Eagle Scout projects in the garden in the past. And so it may just be wise for you to take notes about, what we discussed in this conversation and see if you can find out some of the answers to the questions so that you're prepared for future presentations. I think that might benefit you a little bit to have some more of that information in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
Jeff?
I guess I didn't see any dimensions to it, and my concern is the location that you're looking at could become a very tight location for boats that are coming up to moor on the current pier. Is there enough space for a pontoon boat to be able to still pull up alongside the pier and to still have the kayak launch in that same area?
Yes, there should be more than enough room for both the kayak launch and like more boats to be able to pull up onto the already pre-existing docking area.
And Jeff, just to piggyback on that, like the photo in the packet is kind of a perpendicular and kind of a what they call a flow through or a pass through where you can launch from either sides. Based on kind of the existing boat pier, we would be looking at a parallel configuration and a single entry and exit. So you wouldn't have kind of the long rails on both sides that would tee off a pier. It would be parallel with a pier on probably the opposite side of the kayak launch area would kind of hug the property line to the left of the current crushed rock path is where we're looking. So we'd still be able to have boat access on both sides of our existing pier.
Good, okay.
Other comments, questions? I guess a comment with regard to the first, the Eagle Scout part of the project, the kayak launch. That's a much needed improvement for sure. I've put in and taken out there a number of times, and it's a little bit rough doing it. The ADA pier was an awesome idea. I'm kind of thinking, why haven't why should we have to do a fundraiser for that? Instead, it should be a future year capital project. But right now, who knows when that would be? So, are you looking for us to authorize both of these or
So the main part of Cody's Eagle Scout as it relates to is the gravel path. And that's a fairly straightforward utilizing, Eagle Scout volunteer help. It's a one-day type of project. The moving forward with the fundraising for the accessible kayak launch would basically include the city, us setting up the financial end of it. So we'd have a donation campaign on the website and it would be a segregated fund for the fees coming in. Cody would then work within his existing contacts to do kind of the lion's share of the marketing of going to different groups that might benefit from it, commercial businesses in the area that could support it. And then we would have kind of a timeline goal of early May to see where we're at funding level wise.
okay. So
yeah, I would be recommending that this committee would support both those endeavors.
Can I comment, Jake, about what Doug was saying? And Doug, I agree with you. I'd like to be able to say to other community members that we support this fully as something that's not available to other people. But however, Cody, in terms of your project, this may help other folks down the road. There may be other towns or other lakes, and there will be people that'll see this and think, why can't we do this? So I don't think it would hurt to be able to say to somebody, not only did I do this, I also did some fundraising to get the money to cover that $20,000 to put it in there. That would be a great project.
Jeff, did you have a comment?
Cody, one other comment. Is your dad editor of a newspaper? Kevin, are you an editor? No. Okay.
Hey, Jeff?
I wanted to say too, Cody, I think it's a great idea. Certainly both projects are wonderful projects. I think all of us could say that we don't know what is going to bring us the next day. We could get hit by a car and we may be the ones needing to have better access to the lakes if we want to paddle. So I think it's a great project that you're pushing forward, and I'd like to make a motion that we allow Cody to be able to upgrade the launch area at Schluter and to start fundraising for the accessible kayak launch.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Rachel. It was a tie. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Thanks, Cody.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Yeah, thank you very much, Cody.
Thank you.
Great project.
Thank you, everyone.
Cody, this is something I refer to once in a while, sort of an IQ test. Why would we say no to something like this? I really appreciate you putting all this effort into it. It's a pretty considerable project you're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on, the 5C discussion and recommendation on resolution supporting reauthorization of the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant Program.
I think, do you want to go to that before B cycle? We have Jen Coor here, who helped author the resolution, so maybe we could skip that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I guess got lost on but yeah, since I already announced, then we'll go back to B cycle. My apologies.
So a little backstory. Jen Coor, Alder Coor's husband, Mike, and I are on Team Knowles Nelson, representing different parties. So as many of you are aware, I'm president this year of Wisconsin Park and Rec Association. A lot of that work is involved in working with our governmental affairs contract lobbyist and with the support of Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund, which certainly will be benefiting the city of Monona. And Mike Coor is Trout, I'm going to get the name wrong. The Trout Stream, not Trout Unlimited.
It's Trout Unlimited. He's the state council chair for Trout Unlimited. He does a lot of their legislative lobby work.
So Mike and I were fortunate to be on one of the calls with Governor Evers and both basically supporting the reauthorization. And then Mike also threw us a really nice kudos the other day saying the local unit of government fund needs to be improved and added on to. And what kind of came out of that was Outagamie County was the first county in Wisconsin to issue a resolution supporting reauthorization of this grant program. So Jennifer reached out to me and I said, yeah, I think the city of Monona should be the first municipality to also show support, as we are going to be asking and submitting a grant application for the acquisition of San Damiano for a fairly significant dollar amount. So this is a great bipartisan, general bipartisan supported program. There's always numbers in the detail, but the governor's budget will be coming out in the next week, I believe, a week or 2 weeks. So time-wise, we would like to get this on the next council agenda to have the council support this resolution. And Jennifer was able to kind of massage the resolution and put in some of the highlights that we had here in Monona in support of the program.
Okay. This seems pretty straightforward too. Jennifer?
Sorry, I've got a kid upstairs who's having a complete meltdown. So I missed the last part of what Jake said. So I'm sorry if I'm going to repeat something. But yeah, Jake came forward and said that this was a great idea. And so we partnered to pull something together. My family obviously feels real strongly about Knowles Nelson stewardship funds. And I think that it's important for Monona to come forward and kind of be a leader in supporting it. You know, these kind of resolutions they don't look like they do very much. You know, it's nice to say, yeah, we support it, but where does that really do? And my hope is that this either gets some good press. My husband actually talked to a legislator today who is from the Green Bay area, and he didn't know that this was even a real controversial issue, that like had no idea that this was something that's been pushed back on by the majority party. And so my hope is that if we do this in Dane County, that kind of raises the awareness a little bit about the Knowles Nelson Fund and gets people talking. So.
And looking at the packet, I put the wrong version in. So there is an updated version that reflects our Monona. I'm sorry. Alder Coor had it very nicely all done and I put the wrong version in. I would just say, if you're not familiar with this program, it's a $33 million a year program. Local units of government have access to $6 million a year for acquisition and development projects. There's also a $2.5 million fund per year for boat launches and lake access. So our biggest grant award that we've gotten for the city was for Lottis Park in 2015 for $500,000. That's a stewardship fund. We also received funding for the acquisition of Woodland Park when we bought that through referendum in 1995. The wooded area next to Frostwoods Park, we used stewardship funding. And then of course, we all remember the flip side of our stewardship story in 2019 with the awarding of funding for Grand Crossing and then a joint finance committee objection, which resulted in us having to turn down the funding. So it's a really important tool for access to recreation. And I think having us be the first city in Wisconsin to formally proclaim our support is significant in a number of ways.
Alder Coor, do you think you could provide the board with, and I apologize if this is in the packet and I overlooked it, but a link to more information about the stewardship fund / grants so that we can just learn more about it generally?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can send that to the committee after this.
Thank you.
Okay, then if somebody wants to make a motion, I think that would be in order.
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further
I'm putting
discussion?
Jen down because she's had her hand up now a couple of
Yeah,
times.
good call. I was gonna say the same thing, so yeah, good call. Further discussion, seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jen, for bringing this forward.
Thanks to Jake for pulling it together, and I appreciate the time of the committee tonight.
Sure. Well, you can stay around or you
Oh,
can
stay on for this one because this is going to be a fun one.
No, I have a 6-year-old losing her mind upstairs, so I'm gonna have to go take care of that. I'd rather stay for this, let me tell you.
All right, thanks. Okay, then let's go back up to 5B, discussion recommendation for B-cycle installation at Grand Crossing Park.
Since we're recording, I'll not tell my funny jokes and music references about guess who's back again. I just did, sorry. So as you may recall, B-cycle has been an ongoing discussion about trying to get one in Monona. Over the past year and a half, 2 years, different variations, locations. The latest was a reach out actually pre-COVID. And then COVID happened, followed up in fall with the addition of the e-bikes. Madison B-cycle significantly had a request in their annual survey report to have a stop in Monona. So they reached back out to myself and Steve Dorn from the Current and talked about our original location at Grand Crossing Park and went back through what the numbers were originally and re-quoted and talked about different opportunities. And so tonight we have a presentation. If the board is interested in this capital budget amendment for the city to purchase B-cycle, they weren't available to be here tonight, but would be available at a future council meeting, but sent us the presentation, which is in your packet. I'll just throw it up quick here. Oh, what a mess. No, I don't want to do that. All right, you have the presentation in your packet. You can follow on, and I'll just kind of go through it. The new B-cycles, e-bikes have a different type of docking station, which reduce the overall cost to the sponsor having it in the location. So one of the big selling points is to kind of fill in these gaps along the Lake Monona route. They have a ridership goal of almost 250,000 people for next year, and looking at over 100,000 riders in 2020. So one of the things that I had told B-cycle was, okay, we have to kind of like sell why we should be purchasing this. And I also asked how many Monona riders had purchased either a daily, a monthly, or a yearly membership. And to the best of her knowledge, over 100,000 riders have participated in B-cycle in the last 8 years, and 1,400 were from the city of Monona. And so as what we know and love about Monona is the more convenient something is for us, the more we would use it. And I think one of the challenges of our residents being able to access B-cycle is just the current locations of where some of them are. They're not typically walkable or even bikeable at this point, being at Olbrich and Garver Mills. So that's a potential positive for us. Having a landing spot at Grand Crossing Park where people can spend more time at the retail districts and also our below deck with our concession stand and at Grand Crossing Park. One of the things, and COVID is a little goofy on how we watch how parks are used, but it's one of the things Missy and I do a lot with when our parks are redone. We kind of like check them out and watch people and how they use and interact with the park. And what we noticed a lot about Grand Crossing this year in the summer months, very transient, where people would walk or bike and kind of come down, walk through the park, sit on the pier, and then leave right away. And so one of the things that as we talk about from a marketing perspective and how we engage with people, and that will evolve over time, but having a B-cycle station there where you can spend some time, hopefully spend some money at our business partners and also below deck. It also gives us an opportunity for renewing some of our dependence on fossil fuels if we're driving downtown. So all the good things about bikes, riding bikes, there's some information in the packet. We kind of had a heat map on page 10 of your packet, which read as heavy activity kind of dispersed from 2019 to 2020 from downtown to kind of around the lake. So certainly we saw it with our eyes, a lot more bicycling using the lake loop, a lot more B-cycle. Location is where we had it planned on page 11. First location from our conceptual plan is still the preferred location for this B-cycle. The page 12 kind of shows the configuration of what the docks look like in this, what they call 3.0 station. So it's not what you might see at Olbrich with a larger unilateral display. This would actually probably be an L shape that would hold 12 bikes. This one is a battery power, doesn't need electric supply, even though we had it there. You'd be using a mobile app or RFID card to check in and check out the bikes. So we would have wayfinding signage there, and then we would be able to have advertising on the bikes as part of our deal with B-Cycle, and that's where some of the cost sharing that I'll get into. And I'm sorry if you have background noise. Our dryer's like in full spin mode right now. If you hear that, sorry, in the basement. All right, so brass tacks, talking final numbers. We had approved $15,000 in the 2020 capital budget. Through kind of verbal in 2020, we were looking at closer to $50,000 for a station. And at that point, I was like, we're completely out, we're not pursuing it anymore. So what happens with those projects just kind of fizzle, they go back into the general fund. So that $15,000 is still there and available if this is supported by this committee and approved by City Council. The extra $5,000, I would recommend we use the savings from the 2020 capital project at Ahuska Park. We recently redid the parking lot lights as a carryover project. We had $30,000 budgeted for that project, cost about $15,000. So we do have some carryover balance available for this project if you guys were interested in it. The annual sponsorship operation fee is down to $6,000 per year. That includes basically making sure that the bikes are in good working order, that they're charged up, ready to go, and that B-Cycle can come and shift and move bikes back and forth. With that $6,000, we have at this point today $3,000 a year committed from the current and one of the retail commercial tenants at the Triangle, and the goal would be that we can absorb $3,000 a year in our Grand Crossing expense budget, but we're confident with our own sponsorship and advertising program that we have with the outdoor pool, some of our special events, that we would be covering all of that through sponsor fees. What they would get in return is advertising on the bike, and those bikes go all over the place. So basically the first day that they're at Grand Crossing, you might have Below Deck or Minota Bank River Rink on the bikes, and then it works its merry way through the B-Cycle system, and that's where some of the marketing benefits. And then or on page 14 of your packet would have some of the combination for passes, discounted passes that would be available too. So this is kind of a private partnership with the current, and Avid is one of the other commercial members that's in right now. We're working on a couple of the other retail establishments there to have a memo of understanding that they would contribute to the operation costs for a 3-year period. We would take the rest of that, whether it be $2,000 or $3,000 a year, and either utilize some of the membership opportunities for our residents or repackage it in some advertising sponsorship opportunities that we have. Last, Schluter Beach was in there as an option for a full another station, and that pricing was in there as well. Going back up to page 13, there was a 3 docks for 6 bikes plus 4 free docks. The 4 free docks are would be included if we move ahead with Grand Crossing. So we would get Grand Crossing, pay for it, but also receive 4 docks at Schluter because they want to do a pilot program on a charging station and try to use it at Schluter. So we would have the opportunity to have some bikes at Schluter for this summer with a goal that we'd be looking at business partners to sponsor a station at Schluter for future years. I think that's kind of the presentation in a quick nutshell. Missy, if I miss anything, feel free to pop in.
Okay,
So
now
I'm interested in hearing your thoughts, comments, concerns.
Tony, did you?
I did, Jeff. I did see you raise your hand. Just a quick question. I'm looking at I just Googled B-Cycle Madison stations, and I don't see anything on this side of the lake. Is there anything at all on anything?
Old Brick Park is the closest on the north, and then Sheraton on the south. So
it would be possibly like a heavy use area just because of the separation from where the heavy traffic occurs. Another thought would be B-Cycle be in charge of like relocating these bikes and charging them, you know, if the electricity is not an issue? Kind of, can you spell that out a little bit for us?
yeah, B-Cycle is responsible for all maintenance and upkeep and making sure that the racks are kept full. And so they keep, you know, they have real-time data on what bikes getting checked out from what location. So that's part of that annual operating fee that we would be paying.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff?
Jake, you touched some on the 15,000 that is in the general fund. Is that specific to B-bikes, or is that in the general fund, which could go for other types of things within the city?
It's a good question, Jeff. No, it's undesignated at this point. So it's not designated for B-Cycle. We do have the mayor on, and I know she was on another meeting, so I don't know if she's actively listening or not. I did ask if she was still interested in B-Cycle and this proposal and still wants to see all the details, but I think the general consensus was there was some support there. So whether or not other projects, the mayor is here, so I don't want to speak for you, Mayor, if you want to pipe in.
No, I'm in support. I think, you know, since the price is so much lower than it was a year ago, and we have some buy-in from some of the commercial businesses there, I think let's try it and see how it goes.
So what was it? What was the price before?
Wasn't it? It was like $33,000 or something, wasn't it? Something.
It
totally
was 33 when it was the red bikes, and then when it went to e-bikes, it was like, well, now we're closer to like 50 grand because we thought these stations, and at that point I was like, we're out, because we basically had approved 15 grand, and we had tried to work with the developer, and this was right at the time of final completion construction of the current project, and we just couldn't kind of negotiate what this agreement would look like. And I was basically like, here's what we have to offer as a city, and that's it, and then we're done. And we were, because we couldn't come to anything. And then we did get an email over the summer saying, oh hey, or pre-COVID, we're interested to kind of revisit this project and have some new information to share. And we didn't, connect until post summer, and then had more serious discussions with Steve about what their commercial investment could be, and kind of went back to this proposal and talked internally about absent of the initial capital cost, could we work with that ongoing, $2,000 to $3,000 a year within our Grand Crossing budget, having kind of been through a full cycle now of what's been approved in 2021, knowing some of what our one-time costs were, are the ability for us to kind of market that advertising component, that we have multiple facilities that we can kind of package and work with our special events. I think Missy and I are both comfortable with that number. And the assumption is that we would have those costs covered by sponsors. So it wouldn't be a hard cost to the city, but we would be able to, within this year's operating budget and the next couple, to absorb it if we had to, the maximum of 3,000. But I think if we move forward, we'll have another commercial locked in for 3 years. So we'll really be looking at 2,000 before we start with our commercial partners.
Rachel?
2 questions. One, sort of just logistically, when bikes are coming in and out of the park on Metropolitan Lane, is there currently a bike path on the road there, like a designated bike path on the street? I don't know if there is currently or if there's plans. I know already it seems to bottleneck right there with cars coming in and out every time I go there to the rink, or my son has hockey or something. And I worry about if there's so much traffic on, with people riding bikes, and are they going to start riding on the sidewalk or running into people or cars? So we might need to just think about having a more direct, easy on in and out access for the bikes there. And then just second question, did you say, so there is it solar powered? How are these batteries charged?
Sure. Second question, they're battery powered. So they have battery connections for the use of the docking station. Since it's an app based, it doesn't need as much consistent power because each of the individual docking stations are associated through the app. So you go on the app, you say I'm at Grand Crossing Park and dock 13, and hit your thing, and I don't know if it's a magnet or whatever releases, so the bike doesn't stay locked up, so you can get on the bike. Your first question, the path that goes in front of Breakwater Yacht Club and Grand Crossing is wide enough for multi-use. So it is wide enough to allow for both bikes and pedestrians. So when you do cross, I don't know if it was the city of Madison or Monona that put the blinking light in now as well. So we've got that kind of protected crossing that would be able to go from the lake loop straight across down to Grand Crossing. On
but on Metropolitan itself, is there a designated lane there, like a marking?
Not on the road. It's the actual sidewalk. It's a 10-foot wide sidewalk, so it's mixed use. So you can do bikes. You can do bikes all the way up from Broadway, and we'd have to have some wayfinding signage to that effect.
Right.
And I think the crosswalk lines up with that pathway on both sides.
That's correct. Yep.
Jeff?
The businesses that are in that area, they certainly will benefit from having B-Cycle in that area. I have concerns with $15,000 going towards this project when this is flexible money that we could be using for other projects within the city. We heard 2 good projects earlier in our meeting, San Damiano, the accessible kayak rack. So I think there's probably certainly more that we could be talking about where the money could be going that way. Jake, you and I even talked, at the skating rink, you don't have lights right now, and we need to get some money to be able to get some lights for the skating rink at the lagoon. I guess the other big part of this is that we really don't know the usage until the development is completed. There's going to be quite a few more people living in that area. And so I'm opposed at this point to be spending the city money for B-Cycle. I think that the businesses may need to pony up some more money for something like this. And I think that we should also think about waiting to have the development completed before we start looking at, a space being utilized for B-Cycles. There might be some other location in that area that could be used. So I'd rather see us not using the 15,000 for this project. I think continue to work on the people, the businesses that are in the area to be able to come up with some more funding and for us to consider some other projects that need the money in the city.
Okay. Yeah, I really like the project except for the money part. I think it'd be great to have these, especially the one at Grand Crossing. I'm not against it, but it just strikes me as an odd business model or an odd way to do things where you want to come and use our land but then we have to pay you to put stuff on our land and run your business there. So I'd like to hear what they would say about that. Maybe it's not, maybe this is just how these things are done in other cities, where they have similar type operations. So that may just be the way it is. If we, but somebody else is going to have to pay the capital cost or a good chunk of them, whether it's the city or combination city and private. Other folks, Pat, and then Tony.
First of all, I share some of the same concerns, questions that are being raised about the financial part of it. On the positive side, one of the things that I really like about B-Cycles there and Schluter is it encourages and offers the opportunity for more people to explore Monona by bike. And we have many destinations here that really draw people, with Grand Crossing, with Schluter, San Damiano coming up, and all of those places, parking is an issue. So the more people can come to Monona and support our businesses, enjoy our parks and our green space without bringing vehicles, I really like that idea too. So so financial's a concern, but I really like the idea of the B-Cycles coming in.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
When we talked about this a couple of years ago, it was a bit of a no-brainer. Like, this is just way so much money for the return. We just didn't seem to view it as a positive for the city, considering the odd business model, as you stated, Doug. Another thing is, like Pat, you just said, we're a pretty great destination on the bike loop anyway. We have a lot to offer people as they come around. It looks like this business model is kind of set up for cities and businesses that would benefit from this to draw more attention to their services or their businesses. And that's not necessarily something that we are in dire need to address at Grand Crossing Park, considering the exposure that we have, the rank that we have, the businesses that are there, the hotel that's going to be there. So it's not necessarily something that we are in need of, particularly to draw business to that space. That being said, it's of course in the benefit of any of those businesses to have this there for them, and so that being said, do we have any leverage in terms of being able to negotiate this further, with B-Cycle in terms of, I don't know, perhaps knocking down some of the capital costs, putting it on them to try, or I don't know how that is worked out, quite honestly. how we can leverage that a little bit more in our favor. Looking at us, you know, of a capital investment of $20,000 down from what it was 33, and before that even more, and then down to a $6,000 after that annual is an eye opener for me. So I like to see that we're moving in this direction where we are getting a cheaper rate here based on the services that have already been in play for a couple of years. Working at the terrace, we're on the bike loop. I see nothing but B-cycle e-bikes flying by. If you haven't gotten on one, they are fun to ride. They're actually really, really fun. Be it however you feel about, you know, e-bikes or not, there's a reason why people use them. And in today's, you know, economy where people don't have a problem flashing a debit card or anything or paying electronically, this is going to continue to grow. So I think it's something to consider, possibly in terms of how we can leverage, we can negotiate this a little bit more. What is B-Cycle's advertising going to be for the city of Monona? If we are going to be the only station on this side of the lake, how are they going to push that for us? How are they going to encourage that for us? Is that something that we can get from them? And if we can get that from them, can we present that to these businesses and maybe have them to sign on a little bit more? You know, does Buck and Honeys want to add a little bit to this? I could see people stopping for coffee. You know, does True Coffee or Forage, do those guys want to get involved? I mean, it's going to benefit them. The city of Monona itself and our Parks Department, I don't think needs this attention, which is what this business model seems to be pursuing. So I think we have a little bit of leverage here, you know. That's my soapbox for that. In regards to the space, I am a little bit concerned, as Rachel was saying, and some others were echoing, about the space usage. I think this park is going to be quite popular once things open up and once everything is finished and developed in that area. And, you know, seeing some of these layouts, and I know, Jake, you said this is all kind of configurable, you know, but I am concerned that, you know, this docking station, if we have 12 bikes there, is going to take up some space and take up some sort of accessibility into that park. And I would even consider, if we did go in this direction, of possibly putting it in spaces that we currently have landscaping, thus far knocking back the need to maintain these landscaped areas and opening up more space for the usage of bikes, maybe running it down towards that fence line or something. So a couple of things I'm just kind of tossing out there, just to think about moving forward with that. I do think if we have 12 bikes there and there's a lot of people, considering that it is the only stop on this side of the lake, it could be quite busy perhaps at times, and it's something to think about. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll pop in quick.
Yeah.
So the 12 is configurable. You could put multiple at different locations. The idea from our end around 12 is it broke out nicely on the per bike cost for a private public partnership. So I've squeezed about as hard as I can squeeze on both the private commercial members and also B-Cycle. So I don't know how much more we can get off of this. If we don't want it, that's fine. And, you know, we're just drop dead, not going to bring it back. I do, you know, my recommendation is we do proceed with this. I think it's a good opportunity. I'm more on the end of our residents and know how I deal with stuff in Monona. If it's easy access to me, I'll use it. If not, I won't. So I personally have not ridden a B-Cycle in 2 years because I'm not going to stop up at Old Brick Park and like rent one from there and hop on one. I love seeing them and I've heard nothing but good reviews from people that have used them. So while I do think there is a financial cost to us, I do think having that opportunity for our residents to participate, and I do think there's going to be a lot of exposure from the B-Cycle side. They seem very willing to work with us on the way we market and promote different type of events. So I think maybe if that's something that's of interest, we could have less at, I don't know if they would do the docking station at Grand Crossing and like Schluter for the one price. Like maybe that's like we go to like 6 bikes at Schluter and 6 at Grand Crossing type of deal. If they can give us the price, the initial cost for the docking stations and the one operating fee. So I don't, you know, I think there's some opportunity there. But if this committee is not interested, that's fine. We can just politely decline or ask them to come back with, like, you know, your last offer, or wait until next year. I don't know, based in 2022, based on what happens in 2021, if that, you know, those prices will hold, increase or decrease.
I just want to swoop in as a millennial, love to spend money type of person and just say that I'm very passionate about trying to get this to happen. I really appreciate all the conversation about it. I think all of the points are valid, including the concerns about the financial burden that this would put on us. But I'm somebody who was very disappointed that we had to take this out of the original plan, despite its very significant cost. And I would really like to see, you know, Pat brought up some great points. You know, our pride of Monona is our green spaces. Parking is limited for a lot of these, you know, places that we would like to bring people from out of town or even in town to. Outside is pretty much all that we can lean on in the days moving forward. We don't know what's going to happen with COVID or, you know, with future similar pandemics. And I really think that the more recreational outdoor opportunities we can provide to residents, especially through private public partnerships such as these, I really think we need to kind of seize upon them. So my personal opinion is that we should move ahead with this. Sorry, Doug.
Well, I mean, I would like the council to be able to weigh in on it. So even if the board tonight were to vote to not do it, I would still like to, you know, especially if it's mainly a money issue, I think that, you know, the council ought to have the final say.
Doug, can we start a little bit of discussion about this? I greatly appreciate, Jeff, you starting the ball rolling on trying to weigh the cost benefit of it, because I was feeling like the stupidest person in the world in terms of what would this benefit us and why are they getting, that's with the money you're talking about is an annual amount they get, right? To have the station here. Jake?
That's correct. Yep. The annual covers all the ongoing fees, the maintenance and fixing the bikes and charging the batteries. And they have a crew that comes around, and if you have a flat tire or something, they come and fix it. Or if your station's out of bikes, you know, 24/7, they have someone come in and making sure you have enough bikes.
I think it's a great business model for them. I mean, just think of they're getting retail space essentially, you know, around the entire lake. But I like Tony's idea. I think we should dress Tony up in a suit and send him down to what this doesn't seem to me to be a yes or no vote. I don't think what would it hurt to go back to them and say, boy, the committee was really struggling with the finances of this. Would you consider, for example, doing 2 stations at Schluter and Grand Crossing that would be a little bit the same price? Or would you be flexible and negotiate with it? I think that's worth a try. I mean, what do we have to lose? You know, we could say we'll come back to the committee and then it'll probably go to city council and we'll make a decision. But we want to know if you have some flexibility with this, because we think we have a lot to offer you in terms of logistics and where we are.
We have a representative from B-Cycle join us at one of our meetings, Jake, or is it the issue too pressing for that?
No, I don't think it's too pressing, other than we've got some commercial sponsor money on the hook. So I don't want to let it sit too long. It was just the scheduling didn't work for her tonight. She had other meeting commitments. Helen Bradley is the general manager of Madison B-Cycle. So ideally, if we are scheduling public input like next week or the following week for mountain biking trail, maybe I can try to schedule it when she's available as well. And then at the same time, you know, see if there's appetite. So I guess what you're hearing is you want a better deal or like a 2-for-1 having at Schluter and Grand Crossing Park for the price that's quoted at Grand Crossing Park. Is that kind of at least Tony, Jeff, Tom's sentiment?
You know, it's kind of, I think I don't think it would be a great idea to walk away from this. The price, I don't know, can get any lower than this, quite honestly, but it's almost like you said, like, what is your final offer? These are our concerns. Can you address some of these and possibly float us, one last offer to get these guys to come off the fence on this? But, I'm with you, Molly. I see the trend going in this direction. I love the accessibility. This is something that is very much in tune with people who are not able to ride around the bike or path around the lake, on their own accord and don't have the money to go buy an expensive electric bike. So there is something to be said for that. The people that I see on the bike path are of all ages, and so I love seeing that use, and I see it, I'm just off the bike path, so I see them come by a lot. So, it's up to us to see how much we're willing, to pay for this access. But I do think it's a good idea. I'd like to kind of see how much leverage we have, perhaps. I don't know, Jake, and you did say you kind of pushed it as much as you can. So, you're the one who knows more than I would in that regard. But I think it's something to really heavily consider.
Tony, do you know with Law Park, that's a fairly big station, isn't it, in Law Park, that you were referring to before? So was that picked up entirely by the city of Madison, or don't you know?
I really don't know. Actually, I was going to ask you, Jake, if you knew, B-Cycle has so many stations within the city of Madison. How do we know how they finance this or what their agreement is?
They're typically getting a private sponsor to cover the cost of that station. We have not been able to secure a private sponsor for a B-Cycle station at, Grand Crossing Park for the initial cost. So that's why we're here today. We've been able to get someone to pony up 20 grand to get, basically you get your wayfinding signage on that. We would just probably have done it already. It's a little bit unique in some of their older units that have been transformed. I think some of the relationships were different, but typically that's what happens is they look for sponsors that are near maybe where that public space is to sponsor that entire station itself. I would just say like the pricing, it's like $120, which I thought was interesting in our conversation. It's $120 for a year pass. It gives you unlimited membership usage, $20 a month for unlimited, $10 a day, Missy. I think it was $10 a day, and then $5 for 60 minutes.
Yeah,
or $5 an hour, something like that. So the pricing structure is really interesting. And then if you dock in to a station within that 60 minutes, you're not paying any more. But like technically, like if you would start at Old Brick, bike to below deck, have a coffee, and you didn't have a station there, you might pay like $10 by the time you get back versus, if you just bought a month membership, you can ride as much as you want. So I actually thought the daily fee, it's kind of like the pool, going to the pool, but a year pass was actually quite reasonable. That I had also kind of joked, but I think that's part of it. I said, well, how many Monona people have done this? And are you going to like work with us when Missy and I do what Park and Rec does and like promote the heck out of it to our residents? And all of a sudden we've quadrupled the Monona, ridership counts, in the first year. And so I think they're definitely willing to work with us on that. I just need to understand as we kind of go back for final negotiations, if we're only interested in a reduction of the price at Grand Crossing, don't worry about Schluter, or do we want to try to have both locations and kind of maybe spread out the load between the two spots and have bikes at both?
I like the idea of bikes at both. I think probably Grand Crossing will get heavier traffic, but Schluter is a pretty popular area in Monona, especially in the summer. And with San Damiano being so close, I think that could really be, I guess it's close to Old Brick too, but I think more easily accessible to Schluter. Anyway, I like the idea of splitting it up if we can.
Positive. Oh, sorry. Pat, do you want to go?
I was just going to say, I don't know if there's a minimum number of bikes that they would recommend, because I would think, I guess you're reserving them by the app, but if you're gonna go to a station that you've been before, if they only have 6 slots, they might very well all be gone, by the time you get on your phone to do it. So, right, Missy, go ahead. And then I saw a whole bunch of other people wanted to. Oh.
Positive with the Schluter Beach location would be the access, obviously, to the parking lot that we have right there. And then those of a vulnerable population, 60 and older that are looking at utilizing that bike option have that ability to drive, park, ride, and then go, which is a nice asset, especially since they may be on that fixed income and only looking for rides here and there.
Jeff and then Pat.
I guess my thought for a location would be having more of the bikes at Grand Crossing, because you have a lot of people who are going to be living in that area that might not have the vehicles that they're going to be able to drive around the city. And then I guess I have a question, getting back to the funding part. Were you doing the corporate searching to find the money, Jake, or is that something B-Cycle seeks out different businesses to find out what they would be sponsoring?
Both.
Okay. And I guess,
Both.
my question then about that would be, in looking for sponsorship, Planet Fitness, Anytime Fitness, those places would certainly benefit by people who are living at Grand Crossing to be able to hop on a bike and to go to their locations for workouts and such. And I'm just wondering if they have been tapped, because they certainly are advertising a lot to get business.
I didn't specifically reach out to those. I just figured the market, the gym market in Dane County with the pandemic and public health restrictions, from at least what I've heard, has been hit incredibly hard financially. And so that trying to be sensitive from representing the city in that aspect in this regards. And so I did ask B-Cycle if they had any potential donors in the Monona area that would make sense. And they continued to say, well, look into it. But in our last meeting, there was nothing concrete. There's one potential that may make some sense for it. But I think the thought was, if we get the one in full time, at Grand Crossing, the second one at Schluter would be a lot easier to kind of get a full-time sponsor for. It's just trying to get the first one in seems to be the challenge.
Pat?
A couple things. One, I like the idea of two locations. And at Schluter, I'm wondering too about Waterman, if that might be a spot for the bikes, just to consider as we're looking at it. The other, just on the lighter side, how about if the park board does a B-Cycle tour of some of the parks, just for fun? That's it.
That's like a great idea, Pat.
Yeah, I like that. They are fun. Tom?
Just a quick add on to what Pat was saying. I was thinking of the same thing, that we have sort of already on our calendar combining Waterman and Schluter in some fashion. And there's certainly enough space for us to have a B-Cycle station there if we wanted one. And it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, if I was going around the lake and I was from out of town, it's much more direct to do the Schluter. I'd like to see both places, but Schluter is more direct than going to Grand Crossing. It's a little bit off.
Okay.
But just in general, what you're asking for, Jake, I'd like to see you go to them and say that we're not universally opposed to the idea, but we wonder if there's some way we can negotiate around the cost. The cost is a little hard to grasp, and just see where we, certainly buying a car. I just bought a new car, I didn't get exactly what I wanted, but I wanted to give it a good try. I'm driving the car around.
I can preemptively say, and I think Missy was in on this meeting, I have gone to that well. Trust me, I don't know if it's going to get much lower, but I can certainly go back and say it's a no unless you can work on the money. But I thought I made it crystal clear that we needed their very best. And there are some benefits discounted that are included in this that have already been kind of deeply negotiated and discounted. But I will certainly, try again. And I think, I'm at the point where I just need a commitment or saying we're done with it, because it keeps coming up and it comes up in the community. And I said, maybe, or this is where we're at. And I do think this is kind of either we're completely done unless it's private investor and will provide the space, or we are willing to, subsidize it through city funds to kind of make this placemaking, close the loop type of thing happen. But yes, we can certainly come back, and I'd like to try to sandwich it though between meetings if possible. If you guys are, if we get the public input at Maywood, so it's not part of our, a full board March, so we can sneak it into get it on both readings at the March council meeting, ideally, or the 2 March council meetings.
Yeah. So you want to either do this or not, but this year, and get a decision out of the board and say,
yeah,
pretty.
Yeah. I mean, because if the money's not guaranteed. I mean, the council could say, listen, that funding is unsegregated funding. It's no longer dedicated to B-Cycle. This is a complete capital budget amendment with the intent of using the original purpose of 2020 funds and then unspent 2020 designated funds for another park project. So there's no guarantee the rest of the council would say we're willing to support this financially. It's just, I'm recommending that this would be the path if we wanted to pursue it, where the financials could come from.
Okay.
On that point, really quickly, what's the status of alternative parking areas for Grand Crossing? I know we talked about, like, during events and stuff, maybe having like a shuttle or diverting cars to another, that Cranberry Creek or one of the restaurants over there. And I'm just wondering if I'm a total proponent of, limiting automobile traffic and having bikes instead, but the reality is, if we're going to have more programming there, more events, people are going to drive cars there and are going to need a place to put them if we want people to come. So I'm just wondering if this funding would potentially take away from that as well.
Mary?
The city is paying for 60 additional public parking spots in the lower level of the new building. So we're hoping that resolves a lot of the parking issues. And I do think we've had a cross parking agreement between Abbott Hotel and the bank and Buck and Honey's since the beginning, but I don't think that Abbott's been real forthcoming about advertising that people can park in their lot during the day and they can park in the bank lot in the evening. So, but a lot of people haven't known that. So hopefully all those things combine. And now you can park on Bridge Road also, which until I guess sometime last summer with all the construction there, nobody was allowed to do that. So there's a fair number of different options once that construction's finished. So.
Keywords, once the construction's finished.
Yes.
Right.
Ongoing story of the riverfront.
Okay, so we should wrap this up here one way or the other, I guess. Jake, I guess my hesitancy, I don't want to send you out on an errand that's not going to, there's just no way it's going to be worth your time to make the effort, but you think you might be able to get a better price, or is that just not happening?
I think we probably have a better shot with the existing spot, the existing price, with shuffling some of the spots to Schluter, would be knowing that they want to do a pilot program for their charging station at Schluter and that we're willing to give us 4 free charging spots. I think what I would do is R4 that we would be paying for that weren't necessarily advertised at Grand Crossing, we could split to Schluter. So then we'd have 8 at Schluter, 8 at Grand Crossing. And if we can get that for the price, the $20,000 and then the $6,000 annual operating for both. I mean, that's kind of a heavy lift, but maybe year one it's that way, and then we can evaluate type of deal. You know, as far as that split goes. Missy, do you have ideas?
Knowing though that we wouldn't have the amount of bikes to recoup, the same amount of bikes to recoup the same amount of sponsorship money back on, just so you guys know. So if we're going from, you know, the 12 bikes that we're looking and splitting to 4 and 4, and now we just have less in the game to offer to any of our sponsorships or sponsors.
At Grand Crossing, I mean, it would be then we would shift those to Schluter. Yeah, I'm just saying the way we have it split tentatively now is the advertising on the wayfinding signage would be based on, you know, 2 bikes is for $1,000, 4 bikes is $2,000, and that's where the reduced fee for the city on those annual operating costs is coming from. So commercial tenants from the current are willing to pay per year for advertising, but that gives them advertising at the wayfinding signage at the current. So we would be in for a minimum of 2,000. So our 4 bikes, whether we would be subletting our 4, not having like Maywood Park and Rec on the baskets. It would be whoever that we could, you know, get. In essence, those bikes just float off into wherever. So you probably may not see them at the station, but you have the signage at the station. So what we're probably asking for is maybe not doable, but I will certainly ask and see where we can come back. And then I would like to have, you know, Helen Bradley appear. I just think at that point, you know, this board would probably need to be consensus to, you know, to make it happen with the council is my assumption. So, and we can, you know, it's fine either way. It's just, I think this was kind of like the latest proposal. I thought it was pretty good. We had, you know, tried to negotiate some other benefits for our commercial partners, and we can give her one last stab, but I would respectfully ask that we make a decision at that point with what their best offer is.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds reasonable to me. Do you need any action from us, or you have enough direction?
No, I think I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Where are we? So we are on discussion and recommendation on purchase and installation of an outdoor pool heater.
I'd entertain a motion for recommendation.
I was gonna say, anybody want to move approval?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Yeah, Tony. Any discussion?
Okay. Sorry, I had Jen again.
Oh, well.
Just quickly, there's 40 grand in the capital budget. This is a basically exact replacement for what we have. We won't know. Kelly said, yay for pool. Yeah. The hard thing is if the pool heater ain't working, we ain't opening because we got to get the water up to temp before we can get it balanced. And we don't know if it's working or not until the pool is full of water. And so we're always at this like weird point. Last 2019, we normally have a service tech out every year because we have had issues. And he's like, yeah, you'll probably get like 1 or 2 more seasons and then you need to replace it. So this will be a good time to upgrade it. You know, that'll mechanically, knock on wood here, the pool, this will be kind of one of the last big item purchases to close out the life of the pool.
Okay. Further discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Director's report.
I'm going to defer mine. Missy, do you have the January financials that you can share on your screen or no? I know you emailed them to me, but.
Yeah, I have them, so I can pull up and share screen real quick. All righty, everybody. So we are 1 month and a few days here into the start of our 21, I was about to say pool season, rink season. Guys got me all excited thinking about the pool. But our 2021 rink season. So I just have a few comparisons here to go over for from 2020 to 2021, just to see how we've kind of panned out, going through a full year here. You can see from 2020 here, our total revenue brought in January was $13,908. And we substantially jumped up to $19,366, which was roughly a 40% increase in revenue brought in from January 20 to January 21. Our big increase when I look at categories of what we offer was our skate lessons for this season. And then we also jumped up in our admissions and our rentals as well. On the flip side of our supplies and our staff, on our supplies, we did have a 68% decrease from 2020 expenses to 2021 expenses. A lot of that was from our one-time purchases that we had in 2020 to get the rink started. So with this 2,657, I think that'd be roughly where we're at for month expenses moving forward, which majority of that does include our gas and electric to run the rink itself. So this season we had minimal expenses, and then staff should stay relatively stagnant around that $6,000, $6,500, month to month breakouts. Questions?
So it was 92%, right? Was the number that we're going with for fill rate of all of our available time slots in January?
In January, we were at 88% booking. So we had 2,850 spaces available to rent. We had 2,516 booked, and we were open 30 out of the 31 days this season, or this last month.
So a good month, as we would like to say, and kind of setting the year off on the right tone from both a budgetary and financial, and then also, operations and getting people in. So again, you'll probably get this at multiple times from Missy, whether it be from Grand Crossing and how we're doing there, or the outdoor pool, just so you can kind of keep up with in real time of how things are going. I'm very happy, thrilled with kind of the success from a financial perspective, and kind of given COVID, we've benefited, I think, in a lot of ways, but not being able to do, concessions. But year two, it really has helped getting the word out of who we are and where we're at for this ice rink. So I think it sets us up in a really positive path moving forward. And Missy and the team has done a great job, and it's been a group effort all around. Had a lot of snow in January. I don't know how many snow events, but I think it was like we're at 6 or 7, I feel like, in January. And that particular park is a challenge to kind of get snow removed off the rink, off the sidewalks, and then, get things ready in the morning. But between volunteers, some nights, staff, part-time staff, full-time staff, seasonals, we get her done. So it's a good feeling that this committee spent a lot of time and a lot of dedication by a lot of people, just not that long ago, and kind of a conceptual vision of what we wanted the park to look like. And it's come to fruition in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think you guys are doing Doing a great job. That 88% booking rate seems extraordinary. Anybody else have questions or comments? Just go ahead and jump in because I can't see.
I had a quick question. I know things were behind for the Zamboni. Did that come? Or when did it come?
Great question. So no, it has not come. I have seen final pictures and videos, and I'm awaiting a shipping confirmation. It's not been a pleasant experience by any means, and I'm hoping to have it in by the end of this month. And trust me, probably will be, once we take it for a spin and verify that it works and that it does what it's supposed to be doing, we'll be celebrating that fact, and it'll be another advertising opportunity. But it's been a really challenge because as the ice builds up, the thickness of it, we don't have a way to kind of control that. And that's what a really great part about the Zamboni does, is it's got this cutting blade that kind of shaves down and keeps the ice at an optimal thickness. So, which also helps reduce the time in the spring that we need to thaw it out before we can flip it over. So we're planning on staying open second weekend in March, as long as there continues to be demand for booking and paying for time sessions. The unit itself can handle 50, 60 degree temperature. So we had kind of based it on potentially staying open through the second weekend in March if there's still the demand. Last year was like the perfect storm of bad weather, COVID, right? And just like kind of, at low demand. So it was kind of like a three-headed monster where we just cut it after, I think the first weekend in March was our last weekend in 2020.
Last weekend.
But stay tuned.
It was the last weekend.
Last weekend of February? Okay, yeah.
So we're open until. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, and then quickly, sorry.
Go ahead.
Next month, so we're going to try to schedule this public hearing. We got to get the notices out to the residents. And the main reason to do that is I want them not necessarily as part of a general monthly meeting, because we're going to start stacking up a lot of stuff over the next couple months. This is normal if this is your first year, but generally February, March, April are very busy on park board agendas. So I'd like to get that off, have the kids kind of talk and address, and we can address any concerns we might have from the neighbors, and then get that finalized at the March meeting. We will probably have review of bids for Stonebridge Park and the community center project. Those are available for bid right now. So that closes, I believe, in 2 weeks. And then we'll also have the Woodland Park project for review. So most likely I'll send a notification of that'll be on council agenda, first Monday in March, for the approval of the Stonebridge project in the community center, bring it back to park board for review between first and second read. If there's any changes where we would need to provide action or recommendations based on what the numbers come in at. Woodland Park would be like first, we're trying to shoot for first review at Parks Board, and then second meeting in March, first meeting in April for approval for that parking lot and project. We'll have commercial use of park space ordinance next month, which we briefly talked about, I believe, last year. Permitting process for exercise classes, fee-based type of programs using green space and parks, and be able to enforce that if people are trying to do that. And then if San Damiano, the memorandum of understanding, if that does get reviewed at council and approved, that may come back just for discussion purposes, and then what the planning year is going to look like, or talk about some management stuff, what this board would consider a successful June, picnic tables, vehicle parking, bike racks, anything like that. So that's where we're at currently. And then if anything else pops up between now and then, and I'm hoping to at least have a draft of what an extended period capital budget looks like as it relates to our long-term investments in projects, and then some shorter term stuff. Just as we start looking and trying to keep in line with some of the other priorities that we have in the city.
Okay. So you want to squeeze in a meeting between now and the next regular meeting to do the park or the bike?
I'd like to, if we can get the neighborhood input. If it goes long, then it's just not, that's the only thing that's on there, and we're not doing a 4-hour meeting.
Right.
Everything
Yeah,
else that we have. I knew it was going to be a little longer tonight. My apologies. Actually, it's not that bad. It's
Yeah.
only over 2 hours. So, and then if I can get some B-cycle confirmation, it might, if I can get B-cycle and, neighborhood input on the same night, like just looking at the schedule or the calendar here. I'll send out a couple dates, but ideally we would do a Tuesday or Wednesday, the last week in February. Of course, my calendar's not opening up.
Okay. Yeah. Why don't you send out a
I'll
couple
send-
different options and
Yep, I'll send a couple options for you guys, and then I think it'll have to be that last week in February just to give us enough time to send notices out to residents. So I'll try to get that yet tomorrow, and then if you guys could just respond. And I don't think you all need to be there. We'll have it recorded and you can play it back, but if we have some representatives, it would be great.
okay.
That's all I have.
Then unless there's something else, motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll move that we adjourn the meeting.
And is there a second?
Second.
That was Jeff. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
night.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.